that the country's gross national income exceeded $30,000 per capita last year, but that its GDP growth is slowing down. Kim Hong reports.
South Korea's per capita gross national income surpassed the $30,000 mark for the first time in 2018. The Bank of Korea says per capita GNI, a gauge of purchasing power, was $31,349 last year, up 5.4% on year.
Korea has become the seventh country in the world with a population of over 50 million to have passed the 30,000 mark. Passing the $30,000 mark is seen as a measure of recognition as a developed nation.
Per capita income includes income from households, government, and companies. Korea's per capita GNI passed the $10,000 mark back in 1994, the $20,000 mark in 2006, and has now passed the $30,000 milestone. This puts Korea on the same tier as 6 other countries, the U.S., France, the U.K., Germany, Japan, and Italy, which all have more than 50 million people and a per capita income of at least $30,000. As for Korea's GDP growth, the BOK said it grew by 2.7% in 2018, the slowest pace in 6 years. The bank said exports and consumption contributed to the economy, while both facilities and construction investment fell sharply, pulling down the growth rate. With economic growth expected to slow down and with growing structural problems like a low fertility rate and aging population, the BOK said, achieving sustainable growth such as narrowing income disparity and creating more jobs will be important going forward so that South Korea's per capita GNI can reach the $40,000 mark in the future. Kim Hong, Arirang News.
President Moon Jaein says if the country remains on the road to achieving peace, a nuclear-free era will come on the Korean Peninsula. Our Shin Se-min has this report.
President Moon Jaein is remaining steadfast in his diplomatic efforts to denuke the Korean Peninsula, despite the breakdown in negotiations at the Hanoi summit last week. Speaking before a crowd gathered at the Korean Naval Academy in the country's southeastern city of Jinhae, President Moon said if we consistently push for peace, denuclearization will eventually come.
우리가 의지를 갖고 한결같이 평화를 추구한다면 한반도 비핵화와 항구적 평화는 반드시 올 것입니다. 평화 경제의 시대가 이어질 것입니다.
President Moon said the country's Navy is also part of the peace-building process, saying that a strong national defense posture is necessary to establish peace. He added that his country's push for peace in the region depends on the will and the strength of the military, calling for strong defense capabilities.
우리는 국군의 강한 힘을 바탕으로 한반도의 운명을 우리 스스로 결정하는 길에 나섰습니다.
Calling upon the country's military prowess, the president added that his military must be the one that deters conflict but will win without fail if it must fight. And moving forward, he said the country's Navy will be able to pioneer the North Pole route and ensure peace in the southern seas, which serve as vital trade routes for South Korea. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Seoul has approved a one-year deal to share the cost of stationing American troops in South Korea. During Tuesday's cabinet meeting, Prime Minister Lee Nak-yeon and related ministers voted on the bill to share the expense of keeping 28,500 U.S. soldiers in South Korea. This comes after Seoul and Washington signed a new cost-sharing deal last month, under which South Korea will contribute about $925 million US, up 8.2% from what they paid before. Once the agreement passes the National Assembly and is approved by President Moon Jaein, the deal will take effect. After the second North Korea-U.S. summit ended without a joint statement, South Korea is once again taking up its role as a mediator. Lee Ji-won has more.
South Korea's Special Representative for Korean Peninsula Peace and Security Affairs Lee Do-hoon left for Washington early Tuesday to meet his U.S. counterpart Stephen Biegun and discuss the next steps for negotiations with North Korea. Seoul's foreign ministry says the two nuclear envoys will share their assessments of the outcome of the Hanoi summit and discuss ways to quickly resume negotiations. This is seen as part of South Korea's efforts to mediate the negotiations between North Korea and the U.S. after their leaders failed to come to an agreement in their second summit last week. And Seoul has said it will work to provide various ways for Pyongyang and Washington to resume their talks. At the National Security Council meeting presided by President Moon Jaein on Monday, Foreign Affairs Minister Kim Jongun said the ministry will work on a 1.5-track channel of experts and officials following the experience of being involved in three-way talks in Sweden a few weeks ago. She added the contention between the two sides has now become clear, Yongbyon plus additional measures against sanctions alleviation. And since the Joint Liaison Office and declaration to end the Korean War have practically been agreed by the two sides, Kang says Pyongyang and Washington's future talks will only need to focus on the aforementioned issue. With nuclear envoy Yi meeting with various U.S. officials during his three-day visit to Washington, there are high expectations that this could lead to a sit-down between Minister Kang and Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, or even between their leaders in an effort to maintain the momentum for dialogue. 이지원, Arirang News.
I'm Kim Jong-un, and those are your news headlines at this hour.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un is back in the north without making a speculated stopover in Beijing. Observers believe he needs some time to analyze the outcome of the Hanoi summit before meeting Chinese President Xi Jinping to coordinate the next steps. According to the North state-run Korean Central News Agency, the train arrived at Pyeongyang Station early Tuesday at 3 a.m. local time. Kim departed from Vietnam on Saturday after wrapping up his goodwill visit to the Southeast Asian nation, as well as his second summit with U.S. President Donald Trump. And for some analysis, we have Dr. Woo Jang-yap, a research fellow at the Sejong Institute, joining me in the studio today. Welcome to the show.
My pleasure.
So North Korean media has reported on Kim Jong-un's arrival back in Pyongyang after what it claimed a successful visit to Vietnam, as well as a summit. But the English news service version of the North Korea Central Agency has made no comment whatsoever about the Trump summit. We don't know if it's on purpose or whether it's something to do with the summit breakdown, but media outlets in general within North Korea have been positive about the summit itself, making no criticism of the U.S. What should we make of this?
So the Korean version of North Korea's newspaper and the TV news is for the domestic audiences of North Korea. And considering that the nature of North Korean government, the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un should be the perfect figure without any deficiency or any failure. So it is impossible for North Korean media to report that there is any failure with regard to his meeting with President Trump. But they don't have to worry that kind of thing and when it comes to the English version of their media. And second, they expressed their interest in continuing the dialogue with the United States even after the breakdown of the summit in Hanoi. So even Mr. Lee Yong-ho and the Choi Sun-il, they expressed their dissatisfaction or disappointment after failing to reaching the deal with the United States, but they did not really criticize the United States like before. So I think that those are the two main reasons why North Korean media is somewhat calm these days.
So it still appears on track to wanting these dialogues. Now, there was speculation that Kim Jong-un could make a stopover in Beijing, possibly to meet with Chinese President Xi Jinping. However, that wasn't the case. How should we be looking at this? Do you think it would have been a burden for each side to step up or make a move so soon because it could get on the wrong side of Washington in any way?
So it seems that the North Korea did not expect this kind of outcome when Kim Jong-un left his country, because there was huge report of his leaving by his train. And there is no tangible outcome even without any agreement. I think North Korea needs some time to review what went wrong for their approach to the United States before they consult with the Chinese government. And second, there are more practical reasons that there there are two sessions actually being held in Beijing, which is the biggest political event of China. So the two session is the CPPCC, which is the National Committee of Chinese Political Consultative Conference, which is a long word, and the second one is National People's Congress. So considering the President Xi's schedule, it would be difficult for them to squeeze in his visit in this schedule.
Do you see a possible North Korea-China summit in the works in the near future, though, given that after Kim Jong-un makes his mind up over whether and how to proceed in the denuclearization talks with Washington?
So it was believed that President Xi was supposed to visit Pyongyang last year, but it didn't happen. And President Xi mentioned that he's going to visit Pyongyang this year. So I think it's a given. Only thing that they have to consider is when. So when North Korea take some time for the reviewing their internal process, and then they might consult with the Chinese government. And so I think it's just a matter of time when President Xi is going to visit Pyongyang, rather than whether it's going to the matter of whether it's going to happen or not.
So, U.S. President Donald Trump has criticized the Democrats for opening hearings with his former lawyer, Michael Cohen, who he called a convicted liar and a fraudster on his Twitter account. Now, at the same time as a summit with North Korea. Now, he said that it could have contributed to the walkout of the Hanoi summit. How much of an impact do you think the testimony had?
He was certainly distracted by this event. So when he arrived in Hanoi, he tweeted like 7 times, and 4 out of those 7 times is about domestic politics of the United States. Only 3 is about the summit. So I think that he was distracted by this political event in DC, and that led him to consider more in terms of domestic politics of the United States. However, the proposal made by North Korean government at this time was not even possible, even without that kind of political event in DC. So it made some influence on President Trump's decision-making process, but I don't think that it was the main reason why President Trump did not sign anything with Kim Jong-un this time.
So you did see pretty distracted. He said he had watched part of the testimony as well. Now, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says he hopes to send negotiators to Pyongyang in the coming weeks or so. Now, he said nothing has been decided for sure, but do you think the talks could get back on track a little bit earlier than expected?
He said that he's hoping for that, and then there is no sign that two sides actually exchange any messages with each other directly. So I think it will take time for North Korea to review the process because of considering that John Bolton's interview and senior official of the State Department briefings that North Korea was not prepared for this kind of outcome. So I think that North Korea needs more time than we actually think. So United States wanted to continue the dialogue, and United States want to resume it earlier than what it should be. So Mike Pompeo actually sent a message to North Korea that it would be in their interest and North Korea's interest to resume the meeting as soon as possible.
Shifting gears a little bit, Japan has been left out pretty much out of the scene since last year when these developments were happening, but it's expressed support for the decision of President Donald Trump to walk out of the summit with no deal. Some have said Japan may have been a factor in this. What do you think?
So the presence of Japan as a important ally of the United States in Northeast Asia actually make some influence on U.S. government decisions. So any deals that is going to be made between the North Korea and the United States has huge impact on Japan, which is the closest ally of the United States in the region. So in that sense, Japan element should have some kind of impact on President Trump's decision this time. However, the fact that President Trump did not sign anything with the Chairman Kim cannot be attributed to the Prime Minister Abe or the President of Japan. Because now within the United States, those who have criticized the President Trump so far, they actually said very positive evaluation for President Trump. So we cannot contribute the breakdown of this summit solely to the Japan's element.
So there must be a lot of reasons for the breakdown. South Korea's top nuclear envoy Lee Do-hun left Tuesday for the U.S. to meet with his U.S. counterpart Stephen Biegun. Now, they're probably going to analyze the outcome and solidify the coordination between the two when it comes to North Korean issues. What sort of measures do you think will come up?
So now that the biggest question that the U.S. has is the intention of North Korea with regard to denuclearizing itself. Because Mr. Biegun mentioned before and after of the summit that they haven't agreed to the definition of the denuclearization with North Korea. And also he mentioned that when North Korea proposed that they are going to dismantle the Yongbyon facilities, they don't really specify what Yongbyon really means. So North Korea failed to elaborate the element which is very important for the deal. So I think the Korean government and the U.S. government first needs to review why this time that summit broke down. So I think that's the first step, that two countries need to share all the information frankly, so they can come up with the measures that will lead to the reconvention of the negotiation between two countries.
So we will have to listen to their side of the story as well. Do you think there will be any possibility that the issue of inter-Korean economic cooperation may be brought up? Because a unification ministry official said that Seoul will consult Washington to restart two major economic projects, namely the resumption of the Kaesong Joint Industrial Complex as well as tours to Mount Kumgangsan, to facilitate peace and possibly expedite denuclearization process.
So now South Korean government believe that those economic cooperation projects with North Korea would have some kind of positive effect on expediting the denuclearization process of North Korea. But at the same time, U.S. government showed their firm stance on sanctions summit this time. And as North Korea wanted to lift very important sanctions, and U.S. view that now the most important element of having dialogue with the North Korea is sanctions. And President Trump himself mentioned that sanction is kind of only leverage for them. So I think the U.S. government is going to have much firmer stance on sanctions. So I think that's the kind of point where South Korean government and the U.S. government diverge.
Now, inter-Korean exchanges haven't been the most active this year either, and under the joint military agreement the two countries signed back in September last year, they agreed to hold defense talks in March. Do you think North Korea will respond to this? And at this stage, what do you think North Korea's stance will be in terms of inter-Korean exchanges?
So because of the Hanoi summit, North Korea could not go ahead with the agreed ceremony for the March 1st Independence Day. And also there were a lot of exchanges scheduled for last year, but they couldn't happen as scheduled because of probably North Korea's the issues inside. So I think that as the result of the Hanoi summit was not satisfying to North Korean government probably needs more time to think about their own process before they reinitiate this kind of exchange with the South Korean government. So I don't know yet, but it's going to be like 50-50 chance that North Korea would respond positively for South Korean government request for the meetings, military meetings.
Besides the defense talks or military talks, some have raised the need for President Moon Jaein to possibly meet face-to-face with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, or perhaps have a phone call. Some experts have also said we need to meet with the North Korean negotiators that were at the table to hear their side of the story as well. What's your take on this?
I think it is necessary for South Korea to play a mediating role and the expediting role between two countries, because this kind of outcome was like never anticipated by anyone. So I think we have to know what went wrong between two at the Hanoi. So now we need to hear from the U.S. side, and at the same time we need to hear from the North Korean side.
There has been a lot of speculation as to what the U.S. wants on top of the shutdown of the Yongbyon nuclear complex. Now, neither the U.S. or North Korea has clearly talked about what this facility may be. And the South Korean government also says it is aware of all North Korea's nuclear facilities. What should we be making of this situation?
So I don't think that when U.S. government mentioned about beyond Yongbyon and when the Minister Lee Yong-ho mentioned that United States wanted one more thing beyond the Yongbyon. I don't think that one thing is about one facility or one region. So there was a story reported that what U.S. wanted after they heard from North Korea that they wanted to lift the sanctions in exchange for the Yongbyon facilities. Actually, what U.S. gave counter offer is that to release all the sanctions, that North Korea has to commit to full denuclearization. So I think it's just not one thing or one place, one facility or one region. I think it's more about full denuclearization process of North Korea, which North Korea was not ready to accept.
And making headlines on Monday was the fact that John Bolton said President Trump had suggested a big deal to North Korea. From now on, here on, do you think it will still be a phase-by-phase step where the U.S. offers concessions along the way to facilitate denuclearization, or do you think they will be taking a tougher stance to push for possibly complete denuclearization at an earlier stage?
So in Korea, there was this kind of concern, not only in Seoul, but also in Washington, that President might end up with some kind of small deal, which was not able to achieve the full denuclearization of North Korea. However, now President Trump and Secretary Pompeo and NSA advisor John Bolton all mentioned what kind of status that U.S. government is aiming for in this process. So now the U.S. audiences has known that what U.S. government is aiming for. So I think it's difficult for U.S. to back off.
Okay, so that's all the time we have for today. Thank you very much for your insights.
Thank you.
And that's where we wrap things up for today. Join us again tomorrow at the same time. And in the meantime, stay tuned to Arirang for all the latest updates. Thank you for watching and goodbye.